Joe, does this feel like a normal game? Are you treating this like a normal game, or are you letting yourself admit that this might feel a little different?
No, it really doesn't. Coming into this week game prep, it just feels like another week. Obviously, it's the Super Bowl, and we're gonna have to try to eliminate as many distractions as we can. But it just feels normal.
All right, we're going to go to Ben Baby. Ben.
Yeah, Joe, over the course of your career, when you talk to people who know you well, it seems like you're a guy who really enjoys contact. Why has that been the case? Why have you kind of maybe sought that out at times? And how much did you relish the hit on Warren in the 14-state title game against Central?
I don't know why. It's just part of football, and I've always loved that part of it. Wouldn't feel like a football player if I didn't. And I actually saw him. He trained at Black Sheep for a couple days when I was down there right before camp, and we talked about that. So that was kind of fun to reminisce about.
Was that the hardest he'd ever been hit by an offensive player before, or I guess a quarterback or anybody on that side?
And that's what he said.
All right, James Rapine.
Joe, I know you said it's like another week, but I'm sure most weeks don't begin with talking with Tom Brady, and obviously a lot of us probably heard that. What was that like to chat with him and reminisce a little bit about that hit that Nate Clements put on him way back in 2004?
Yeah, that was fun. It's fun to hear him talk about plays in the past. He remembers every little detail about everything that's happened in his career, and so obviously try to emulate a guy like that. He's had a great career, and I hope to get there someday.
James Palmer.
Hey, Joe, you've talked about your play strength in the second half, coming off the ACL and stuff. How much has that changed you outside the pocket and making plays outside the tackles compared to the first half? How much more is that a part of your game?
It's night and day from the first half of the season. I wasn't really able to do any of that the first half, and I've really started to come into my own in that sense, making plays, extending plays. That's something I've always been able to do, and I'm starting to finally feel like myself, and able to pull out of some of those tackles when defensive players have me wrapped up in the pocket, and I'm starting to be able to get out of those situations and make some plays.
Jeremy Rao.
Hey, Joe, I know it's been a while since you received letters from mostly a lot of kids around Cincinnati and Bengals fans coming off your injury. Did any of those, I guess the question would be, did any of those letters get to you? I know it's probably hard to actually get those letters physically to you. Did you see them? Did you hear about them? And kind of how did that make you feel in the moment, getting all those letters from kids about your injury?
There were obviously quite a bit. Tough to read all of them, but none individually stick out. I just remember all the outpouring of support from the community and the NFL community as well. And so I think that meant a lot to me.
Charlotte Wilder.
Hey, Joe. DJ was talking about how much you guys all like each other in the locker room, and that's clearly evident by the way you play. Do you think that's just luck and chemistry, or do you think that can you point to, one person or a few people who really make a difference?
It's tough to just point to one or two people. It's something that I think we work really hard at, creating relationships in the locker room. And, there's not one guy on the team that I wouldn't feel comfortable hanging out off the field with. I would text just about anybody on the team about a function that we were going to. And I think that's, one, it's a rare thing. And two, I think really that's one of the top reasons why we're in the position that we're in.
Jared Smalley. Jared.
Hi, Joe. Had a question for you related to your beginning of your career in high school in Athens. You take the team to the state championship game, had that beach blonde hair. And then as you evolved in your career, you get to LSU, you get to championship games, you perform well. You get to the playoffs this year, get to the AFC title game, perform well. Is there something that is important to you going back to the earliest days of your career that when you get to these bigger and bigger moments that allows you to perform the way you want?
I think I've always played well in these kind of moments. And I think it's just because all of these moments come towards the end of the year. And I feel like I get better as the year progresses just because you have more reps, more film under your belt. You corrected all the mistakes that you've made and throughout the entire year. And I'm good at recalling that kind of stuff. And so when you get to the end of the year, you just have all those reps banked and you just keep getting better and better.
Kelsey Conway.
Hey, Joe. Going back to Ben's question, a little out of the box here, but knowing how you grew up with your dad being a coach, did you always want to be a quarterback? And if so, what other positions did you play? And if not, what kind of was the reason why you picked quarterback to be the position you wanted to play?
Well, I didn't pick quarterback. I got to my first Pee Wee practice, and the coach at the time, Coach Sam Smathers, I still see him all the time when I go back home, and he basically just asked me if I wanted to be quarterback. And I said, no, not really. But then he was like, well, you're going to be quarterback. Too bad.
Dan Horde. Dan, you got to unmute yourself there.
There we go. Joe, we haven't even asked you about your pinky in ages. Does it give you any discomfort at this point? Did it completely heal? And how about the right knee at this point?
The right knee feels great. The pinky is still something that I'm dealing with. It's something that's I'm going to be dealing with for the rest of the season until I can give it a break. I wouldn't say it bothers me too much throwing the football anymore, but I still notice it a little bit. Just doing everyday things.
Mike Petraglio.
Joe, I wanted to go back to Tom Brady, that conversation, and he said something that struck me as interesting, and that is quarterbacks don't show toughness by getting out there, blocking people, hitting people, tackling. They show toughness by standing in the pocket and taking a hit. I'm curious how much you appreciate his words in that perspective, and what makes you so mentally tough as well in the pocket.
Yeah, he's exactly right. It would be stupid for me to run down the field and block somebody. Part of the value of a quarterback is being on the field for all the snaps in the season, not missing any games. So you got to be able to protect yourself. But, sometimes you got to sit in the pocket and a route's going to come open, and you got a defensive lineman like Chris Jones or Jeffrey Simmons bearing down on you, and you have to sit in there and make the throw. That's part of playing the quarterback position. I think, not only just doing that, but when you get up, you don't complain. You don't have bad body language when you get up. You just get up and go on to the next play. I think people appreciate that.
Mitch Stacy.
Just wondering what your week was like, and whether you'd been out and about much, and what you saw out there beyond the facility, as far as people celebrating, being excited, anything like that.
Yeah, it was exciting to see when we got back. They had some fire trucks at the airport that were going off, so that was fun. And when we got back to the facility, there's a lot of people waiting there for us. So that's something that we haven't really seen before. And I think when we see that kind of support from the community, it gets us excited, and we're just happy to give the city something that they're proud of.
Aditi Kinkabala.
Joe, I have to go back to what Kelsey asked you. Why did you not want to be a quarterback? Why are you ultimately so glad that you're a quarterback? What's the best part of being a quarterback? And if you weren't a quarterback, what position would you play?
I wanted to be a running back or a receiver. I don't know why. I guess I thought in Pee Wee football we weren't going to throw the ball very much, so I wanted to have the ball in my hand. Obviously, I'm glad it worked out the way that it did. This is my career. I don't know if I'd be an NFL wide receiver. That's probably a pipe dream, but I can play quarterback pretty well. And I think my favorite part about playing quarterback, there's great players at every position in the NFL, but I think only a few really affect the game in a drastic way. And I think quarterback is the one position on the field that can really affect the game on every single play. And I like having the ball in my hands every play and being able to win or lose with me.
Ryan Dunleavy.
Hey, Joe, can you hear me?
I got you, Ryan.
Thanks. I just want to go back to the Bengals' decision to draft Jamar over Penei Sewell. And obviously, what was your role in that? Like, how much did you tell them, I want Jamar? Because from the outside, I think we all think the most important thing for a young quarterback is protection. How much were you like, no, the most important thing for me is chemistry with Jamar?
I didn't go in and say, hey, I'd love to have Jamar. I think the organization did a really good job of, making me feel like I was at least kept in the loop about the process. So, I was in here doing my rehab, and, Duke would come down and talk to me about, hey, watch this guy. Tell me what you think. Hey, we're meeting with this guy. I'll let you know how the meeting goes. And I think that's all. As quarterbacks across the league, you see some guys getting frustrated. And I think all we want is to have a line of communication in those kind of processes. We don't, for me personally, I don't need to feel like I made the decision. You could go with my opinion or go without my opinion. It doesn't matter to me as long as I feel like, I'm involved in the process, and the organization did a great job of that.
Jeff Hobson.
Thanks, Shrammy. Joe, just two things. One real quick. How many did you play corner in the state championship game, and how many snaps did you play at corner?
I played every snap, I think. In the big games I've always played defense. They tried to keep me off the field in the games that we knew we were going to win by a lot. But, when we played the big games, I was always out there on defense.
And just the other question there, where would you typically watch the Super Bowl when you were a kid? And does anyone stand out to you? Did any couple stand out to you? Any players, any plays?
Well, the biggest one that obviously I watch it every year, and we'd always get together as friends and watch it. But, the one that I really remember is when the Cardinals were playing the Steelers, and, Big Ben made that amazing throw to the back pylon. And, Kurt Warner was always a family friend. My dad was actually on the Iowa Barnstormers staff when Kurt was the quarterback for the Iowa Barnstormers. So, my family's known Kurt for a long time. So we were cheering for Kurt in that situation.
Thanks, Joe.
Bill Rabinowitz.
Hi, Joe. It's been a long time. Congratulations on your success.
Thank you.
How much do you still consider yourself a Buckeye? And also, with all you guys from here on the team, is there a closeness among you guys, kind of a Buckeye spirit, for lack of a better phrase?
Yeah, I'm definitely still a Buckeye. I graduated from there. I still have relationships to this day that I wouldn't have without being there. And I'm still in contact with Coach Mick and Coach Day and Corey, all those guys. So, I'm still a Buckeye. And, it's funny you asked the second one. Isaiah, for everybody else that doesn't know, Isaiah Prince was in my draft class in my recruiting class at Ohio State. And, we just talk about the times. We kind of reminisced after the game about the times we had in the dorms, seeing each other out on High Street. We just said we came a long way.
Appreciate it. Thank you.
Charles Walford.
Hi, Joe. How are you doing?
Good. How are you?
Yeah, good. Thanks. Just going back to what you're saying about sort of your input into the draft and what have you. How did you feel when they told you they were going to take a kicker at 5th round? And has it surprised you how Evans fitted in?
Well, I obviously kickers aren't usually drafted that high, but I figured if we're drafting a kicker, he's going to be really good for us. And then I met Evan, and you kind of know how a kicker is going to perform based on how he reacts and interacts with people in the locker room. All the kickers can kick it and put it through the uprights, but it's really how you handle the intense situations that's going to really make or break your reputation as a kicker. And so when Evan first got here, I kind of poked and prodded him and see how he would react. And he reacted exactly how you would want your kicker to. He gave it right back to me, and as soon as he did that, I knew, what we had.
Right.
Fox Miller.
Hey, Joe, I know these times, in the big moment, you start to find friends and relatives that come out of the woodwork. Have you had any strange requests for tickets or stories?
I don't really deal with that. I let my parents do a great job of dealing with all that stuff for me and my agents. So I'm still in my little season bubble. So I'm not really dealing with any of that kind of stuff, fortunately.
Thank you.
All right, we have time for one last question. We're going to go to Kelsey Conway. Kelsey.
Hey, Joe, I just wanted to follow up on what you were just talking about, Evan. You said you kind of poked and prodded him. What does that look like when Joe Burrow pokes and prods a teammate to find out, what they're all about?
Just make fun of him. Act how guys act in the locker room, see how he responds.